more centered with your face?
Okay, people. So I am.
higher.
No,
Sorry, Kevin.
it's fine, man. Don't worry about the. I think people can see you. It's good.
All right.
It's all gravy. But yeah, I'm here with Jennifer Hutchins and Randall White. Uh, and we're here to talk about their new documentary, Spyral. Guys, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. How are you all doing?
Thanks for
Thank,
having us.
thank you, Kevin. Appreciate being here.
No worries. I mean, boy, things are gearing up. You're having the world premiere of Spiral at Dances with Films on the 29th of June, right? How does that feel after, you know what I mean, all this time making a doc that it's now going to come out to the world?
Well, from conception, from the time I met Randall till this point in time, we're at, I think, 5 years.
Yeah.
So it feels good to reveal it to the world.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, this is such a raw and intimate story, right? Like, I think the question is, how did this become a thing, right? Where did the idea come to turn all of that home footage into a documentary?
Deep pain and being an artist. I never intended to make the film. I was just rolling tape on, we were a couple, we were a family, and then mental illness moved in with us and became a part of our lives to the point where we met a tragic ending at those chapters of my life. And so I was living in Oregon when this entire 13-year span of my relationship with Michelle, the subject of the film, along with me. And I just love rolling tape. Always have, ever since my dad had one of those shoulder-mounted missile rocket looking 80s VHS cameras that people look like where it actually took a VHS tape in it, that all the way through to 4K iPhones now. The journey is actually a journey of technology. If you think about it over time, it starts innocently enough with film on tape, and then gets to the point where so many things were happening so fast in the relationship as Michelle's mental health declined, where I could just pull out my camera to try to catch a crazy moment and then show her back when she would. It's, to me, Kevin, it's like the Incredible Hulk, right? When the Incredible Hulk would wake up and all the clothes are torn and like, how did I get here? What happened? And you're just showing this path of destruction behind them. I would show my late wife Michelle those videos and make her face herself, which is the most difficult thing, I think, for her to ever do until the end, when she faced herself and then wrote that letter goodbye to her daughter Charlotte. So it was, for me, a cathartic process. I've written music albums, and this is my first, if you will, shot at film, where I was just trying to put something together. And then I met Jen with a kind of like a demo tape of what I thought the story should be, and in her hands, here we are talking today. And I couldn't be more proud of the work she's done in making sure this story is true to form. Jen, I didn't know this was going to be like an FBI investigation, but it is. Like, if you think about all the documentation, how well researched the team was, my whole life was turned upside down, and I have opened the kimono, so to speak, to the world to show some very vulnerable things. It does not put me in the greatest light.
Yeah. I mean, it really essentially, we've had so many different log lines and synopses for what this is. And it's really just a look at what happens to one family in America who gets a mental illness. And it's the tragic story of that. And I think the emotion that I want people to land on right now is pissed off. I want people to be furiated that what happened to Randall happens right now in 2024. And people should be scared and they should stand up to make change. That, no family should be expected to handle the nightmare of this without, our society is not set up to help a family in Randall's situation. And so the heartbeat of why we are doing this, the messaging, is that we're about to show you 83 minutes of what it's like to get bipolar. And at the end, we want you to say, that's messed up. Let's fix this.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many questions when you get to the end of this, right? Because it is a system issue, right? And you're looking at it from a stateside issue, a kind of thing, but I don't really think any country has got it down, right? The UK definitely hasn't. You know what I mean? It seems to be a problem all over, right? How do you handle this? What do we do? And we're always told it's a money thing, but as we've seen recently, there seems to be a lot of money for certain things, but not for others, which is very bizarre. It's very bizarre because, how many times do we need to see a news story where someone has done something horrendous, right? For people to go, look, we need to implement some sort of change, but I don't know. We people make promises, but they never follow through, right? It's I mean, Randall, like, from your point of view, right? Because you went through this. What were the difficulties that you were coming up against when you were looking for answers? You were looking for solutions, places to get help.
Yeah, to truncate the whole story into the 80 plus minutes was already difficult because there's so much more, the nuances of it, like having to fight in court as a male father. There is a bias towards the mother getting custody. And it's just, I didn't even get to open my mouth when I went in court. I don't know if it's the way I look or what, but it was talk to the hand and it was dismissed by a female judge. And then my wife took off with my kid to Mexico. What? And so let's look at, I think, first and foremost, the most messed up part is not the system itself. The system is a rotten mess through and through all the way. Every government, in my opinion only. Think there needs to be a lot of overhaul, but really what are we dealing with is you don't even want to have to go to court in the first place. You don't want to get caught up in the system. You want to focus on your family. You want to focus on fixing the root of whatever moral thing is happening between a couple, be that a husband and a wife, or a husband and a husband, or a wife and a wife, or anything that we have in this modern world that we live in. But when it comes down to children being introduced into those relationships, that dynamic for you as a couple changes, and you'd both better be ready to adult. And so I think systemically, judges, court systems, police, social workers, they're dealing with the fallout of the failure at the nuclear family level, in my opinion. So I think that's where you address it first. We need to recognize that there's some real ugly truths that come with bipolar disorder. One of them, the big, heavy bomb is, infidelity, hypersexuality, the need for attention, and Michelle chose to go about it her way to try to deal with her pain and her ills, and realized at the end she had blown everything to bits, and then couldn't face herself that one last time. Because if you see the film, there's sections where we fall apart but we get back together. We fall apart and we get back together, but then at that last time I had to take protective measures for my child, and I had to choose between her and my daughter Charlotte, and I chose the safety of my kid. And that this is a long ass answer to your question, which is that's why and how this came about, is because it's a film about systemic ills, the microcosm of the family level ills. People recognize their own story in this story. And I say it's kind of like lasagna, right? Everybody knows it's lasagna, but their family has their own recipe, but they know it's lasagna. That's,
No, that's true, because mental health is different across the board. What one person experiences, someone else experiences something completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, when you had that first conversation with Michelle and she told you she'd come from a messed up family, like what did you think? What did you envision at that point?
I was trying to get laid. I did not give a shit. I was like, bipolar, what? You have great body. Straight up true. I didn't hear it because I didn't know what bipolar meant. And I didn't know. I was like, well, who doesn't come from a crazy family? I didn't know the level. I didn't know that there's actually bloodlines of crazy. I didn't know that there was a genetic component to it with nature versus nurture, and that mix at the family level of nature and nurture is what your output is. And I believe apples do fall from the tree. If you're cut from shitty cloth, you're going to have really bad odds. And that's just the way of the world.
Well, it is a genetic thing, right? It's like with so many things, blue eyes, red hair, there's like albinism, right? There's so many things that are within the genetic code, and they can miss a generation, right? But then it reappears. So, and this is something that is known, right? So it is one of those things, right, where you just think, when we know this is a reality, surely there should be some help given at the early age, when right, that children are coming into a family where there is the potential, that you do regular testing, you give support, you educate the family so they know what to look out for, they know how to deal with certain things. You just think that was a given, but it's not. And so, people like yourself, they don't understand the magnitude of something, and it then becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Certainly.
We seem to be a society that just waits for things to happen rather than, preventative measures of spending, the first 15 years, building up to get ready for the potential of something happening, because it's generational. But scientists are finding that it's not even necessarily DNA. It's more of a social cosm within the family unit, because you're downloaded information when you're below the age of 6, and that tends to make up your essence. So technically, if you're adopted at birth, you aren't necessarily going to have those traits, is what we're hearing from a lot of the health workers and therapists out there. But we don't really get into any of that with this film. And people have said, why didn't you get into solution-based things with this film? And we just felt there's so many other films out there like that. But there's very few that just say, take a look, here's what's happening. And it's hard, you know, from a documentary standpoint to have enough footage to actually show somebody what life is like.
I mean, sorry, Jen. What you're saying?
Oh, no, I mean, I was sort of to the end of the thought of, you know, I mean, we've even gone further than this film at this point where we're, you know, seeing stuff with the future Randall family. But I mean, this film is interesting because, you know, we get a look into your life very intimately over 12 years is seen through home video footage that just played.
Yeah. And I guess the struggle that I have with people not knowing about bipolar, because now in social media there's a lot of conversations about bipolar disorder, who's right, what's one person's interpretation of it. But what you can agree on across the board is that there's bouts of depression and there's bouts of mania. And what I learned in the timeline of recording is when Michelle, her first manic psychotic or psychosis was shortly after her mother suicided. That's when she kind of snapped, and it really emerged, right? It expressed itself, and that was first with a deep depression, of course. And mind you, in Oregon, long winters full of rain, and I prefer like London, right? You know, I love a good rainy area. Now I'm in Texas, and what the hell? But she was depressed, and then came the mania after that. And what I saw was there was bouts of depression, and then there's mania, and then you have a long period of just regular life. You know, what's for dinner tonight? Do you want rice pilaf? Okay, no drama, boring, just living life. And then whammo, one of them hits in the swing of things, and that cycle became shorter and shorter and shorter between depression and the mania. And soon there was no middle anymore. It was like that brake pad. It was like metal sparks, you know, when those two things were hitting. And there, so she was cycling and faster at the end, doing more damage, like a tornado going from 1 to 5. And so that's what people need to learn about, how to, like, this is a real illness, a real sickness, and it really does destroy entire families like a tornado. So the court system needs to do a better job of shining a light on families impacted by this mental illness. Are going to have a bit of an extra struggle. You know, getting to work on time becomes a thing. Financial things, infidelities, if it's like blowing money. I mean, it wasn't in the film, but the day Michelle left one time, she had $6,000 of brand new furniture dropped off at the house, and she said, "I'm leaving you." What? No, I'm not signing for it. You got to put it back in the van. You know, it's like shit like that. You just got to deal with it. And,
yeah. I mean, because there was so much footage, right? Like you started filming before any of like the issues kind of showed up. So what was the kind of thought behind, I'm gonna film everything? Like, you know, you mentioned your dad had a camera, but what was the thing that was like, I want to capture all these moments?
None of my grandparents are around or with us anymore. And when we did have that old camera back in the middle of the 80s, we captured family moments, and I like revisiting them while I could hear their voices and see them. And I just knew it was important to capture moments that you could revisit nostalgically in the future. Our family, you know, it's just kind of like my dad and my mom had that camera. And so it just became kind of a way. if you'll look in the beginning of the film, it says, I'm from a military family, and it showed some footage when I was just in Alaska. I didn't even know Michelle. I was from a different land. And then, I'm going to go start a rock band in Portland. Landed there and met her, and I didn't even get through a groupie phase, man. I fell in love with and just went deep.
Right. And, as it ramped up, there was just, but you're not, and it's like this documentary, it's not just showing one side of things or it's showing everything.
Yeah.
And you were capturing, so when you decided to, just film you want moments to look back on, but yeah, you were just filming everything. So was there not a thought of, well, let's just get a birthday, let's just get this? But what was it to be like, I'm gonna waltz and all, I want it all?
I think I'm like many people, we wield this powerful camera in our pocket now. Some people use it more than others. I like to wield mine to capture moments, little things though, like a squirrel having trouble pushing a nut up a tree or something like that. It doesn't ever have to be just anything you think's cool or a moment. I never intended to wield it as a weapon against Michelle, other than if I had to in court to show them that she was out of hand and a danger to the safety of my kid. But do I think couples should be whipping out their phone and always trying to, I got you? No, I think you'll destroy a relationship that way pretty fast. So be careful with it. But everybody has a bit of narcissism and the capability to film now. But I think we're going to see more of this.
The thing that you said that got us involved too was that you were just filming like anybody would film their life on vacation moments.
Yeah.
And when you started filming moments, it was because she was not remembering things, and you were showing her on that footage. It was very hard for her to watch. And then eventually filming for potential child custody. So in our heads, it was very easy to be like, okay, we see this 3-part progression that happened with you guys, just, normal family videos. And then, hey, I'm forgetting. And then it's just like all hell's breaking loose.
Correct. Yeah, it really does go like that. I mean, every family has magic moments. Okay. Lots of yelling happens. And everybody has a drama in their own family. But what I was trying to capture and show her was to get over the denial of that. She was in denial until the end, and it was, I am bigger than this problem that you think is bigger than me, and the problem was bigger than her in the end.
I mean, I think people watching this too need to know that she was a nurse that graduated with top honors, and if anybody could take on the system, you would think it would be somebody from within on, dealing with whatever troubles they might be having. So it's extra disappointing that did not work out for her.
Well, here's the reality. Michelle got sneaky. She was addicted to Oxycontin and oxycodone, and dealing with patients that could get dangerous. And so what does an employer do when they have somebody who suffers from bipolar disorder, who's in psychosis and needs help? Well, here in America, we have the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, which is supposed to protect you in the event of needing to take time off of work to deal with the family emergency. But the reality is, in today's environment, there's not support for that. There's just, well, we need you, or if you can't get the work done, we'll find someone who can. And that's just the reality. And I've been tossed out on my ear from many jobs over just trying to deal with this shit going on in my life. I'm like, pardon me, boss, my wife just shacked up with some dude in a hotel while they're all coked out on stuff, and she's threatening to take my kid. Do you mind if I take the day? You know, it's hard. But that's just one issue. What happens when somebody is hospitalized and they can't afford the medical care? We need institutionalization at times. When somebody's in manic psychosis, they need to get the appropriate medication and treatment. And then the question is, okay, well, what is that? Again, it's everybody's got their own mix. You got to dial in the right medication. That takes time. It's like knobs over time. And when somebody's in a manic psychosis state, you can't just go to the emergency room. It's not there's no Band-Aid that when they dismiss them, I mean, they're still going to be manic for and endangering themselves. There's questions about now red flag gun laws. When is it appropriate to take someone's guns? I had a sheriff show up at my door and take my guns from me during all this because Michelle had written a police report saying that I had made threats. That never happened. So you're accused and then you're made guilty, and I never even got a trial. I just had guns taken from me. Do I think it was the right move? Probably. I didn't need them at that moment, and because you are a reflection of the crazy going on there. You reflect it like a mirror. I thought it was a good idea for me to hand over my guns to a good friend who would hold them for me. Did I want the government coming in and forcing it? No. But I thought it was a good idea anyway. You know, But you're right, Kevin. There's so many onion layers to peel here. You know, we're talking about mental illness. We're talking about getting caught in the system. We're talking about social norms and mores that are at the formulaic level. Jen, I think you nailed it. Like it's about kids and when they're impressionable, pre 6 years old. You know, like you will mess a kid up for life if they grow up in that kind of chaos. You really you stunt their growth. I think spiritually, academically. You don't break a kid. Your kid's supposed to have a fun time on their first years on this planet. You don't break a kid. And Michelle was broken as a kid. And she was supposed to break the cycle and not have that happen to her own kid. And then she let that happen to her own kid. And I think she was so ashamed of that fact. That's why she killed herself.
Did you notice a difference in the spirals dependent on the different types of drugs she may have taken?
Oh, yeah. The bath salts era was different than the meth era. You know, they spin you out different ways, but just it's all poison. It's all junk. Granted, now we're in 2024. This was the drug scene of Portland in the mid 2010 to 2015 era. We didn't have fentanyl mixed in with street drugs.
Yeah.
Right now, how many people are dying because of an addiction because of fentanyl? Like this problem is escalated. Michelle passed away in 2015. We're coming up on 10 years gap. And the problem's only multiplied with all these street drugs. It's a crisis. And so we're addressing that. We're attempting to with this film.
Yeah. I mean, we're not equipped to solve the problem. By no means is anybody an expert in mental health, but we're filmmakers, and what do filmmakers do? They show a story that's happening. And, documentarians, we had another level of just ethics to make sure that we could show the story in a balanced and unbiased sort of way. And as Randall saw, we really did a lot of due diligence on, talking to every single person that ever entered their lives. And We even hired a private investigator for some of the claims. Even though Randall, we said, we trust you and you seem like a great person, we still did the due diligence to check on some things that were said and whatnot. So at the end of the day, you're going to see something that, I think we've nailed it on due diligence.
Yeah, no, I think a interesting thing about this documentary was the fact that it wasn't kind of trying to steer the conversation in one way. It was like this honest look at everything. And, so we saw Michelle, everything she was doing, but then we saw what Randall was doing as well. And as you said at the beginning, there's moments that don't necessarily paint you in the best of lights.
I'm no hero. I'm no angel.
But that makes something compelling, because I think a lot of times you watch something and it's so in one direction, you're kind of wondering, you're like, is this really the truth? Did it really happen like this? I mean, a film that I definitely thought that, I remember Pursuit of Happiness, that Will Smith film, and him looking after his kid and everything like that. But the question I always had with that film was, where was the mum? Right? There was never a question of the mum or the mum wanting the kid, because surely the kid being with the mum would be better than the kid being on the street, right? But we only saw one side of things. So with Spyral, we see it all. And I think that is really important for a story, and something like this where you're you're trying to address something, you're shining the light on something, so it has to be straight honest, and that's the vibe we get from this documentary.
I'm proud of the way Bill Guttentag, the director, was able to objectively, like Jen said, they think I'm a nice guy and all that, but trust but verify. And so handing over all of Michelle's diaries and all of her medical records and all of everything I could for them to be able to let her voice speak, so that if it's a he said, she said, that she got, yeah, you're right, Kevin. I'm saying exactly, you're nailing it. It's both sides of the story. And my original kind of demo doc that I brought to Jen with an idea of what the story could be was very much my lens. So Bill demanded, rightfully so, the full lens. And so that's why it's been such a long journey, is because they have diligently made sure this is absolutely a narrative as it happened. And that's it. Raw view.
And I think, even before that happened, we had extensive conversations about, are you ready for us to rip open your life? People are going to judge you. People are going to think that you made mistakes and maybe you're a bad guy. And, are you ready for that level of intensity coming towards you? And your answers were a part of what convinced me to proceed forward, because man, having your life exposed on a documentary film or TV series, it's not easy. It's not for the weak, to say the least. I mean, I had my start in producing magic and ghosts, shows on Chris Angel Mind Freak on A&E and Ghost Hunters on Sci-Fi, and even those stories were hard for people to reveal their life. Like, they're having people come in and investigate ghosts in their house, but they're having to talk about personal things. Like, compared to those stories, which was hard for people to do, this is like excelled. Like, this is the most extreme you could ever expose yourself.
Well, we have an opportunity here to hold difficult conversations where people can come to their own conclusions. We don't have to offer solutions, even though at the end of the film there's a QR code you can scan to go to mental health resources and take action on that. Hell, I've joined all of these different groups trying to help out other people in bipolar support groups. I created a parenting plan template for Michelle and me when Charlotte to make sure that, okay, if you're going to get custody of the kid, you have to have a recent drug test. You can't be in your manic psychosis. And we came up with rules that we were going to share custody of our kid with her mental illness. I was going to try to manage it. I was going to tackle that fucking thing. But what I have is a resource that I've been able to give out to probably about 50 different people, men, women, parents, to say, well, here's a template to help you get your act together when one of you is in a manic mode or a depressive mode, and you can't even take care of yourself, never mind your kid, can't even get out of bed. This is a sickness. And so there are great books written on the subject. I encourage everybody to, get on whatever AI chat program. You can ask questions and get all the answers now but it's a matter of, we have a percentage of the population around the world, because it's not just America, but what is it, Jen? 3% or something of the population is
before the pandemic, it was 14 million people had been diagnosed with bipolar in America before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Which it's really hard, as you know, to get the diagnosis. So to me, that number is at least 3 or 4 times that, and then add in the pandemic,
add in inflationary pressures on at the financial level. A couple, if you're going to be together, you need to have sweetie pie vibes. And when you're already at each other's throats, and then you put in the financial weight, and they just keep on stacking the bricks on you, stacking it, more and more bills, more and more fees. People are drowning. You're starting to see it on social media right now. Literally, pleas of help. I can't make this on my own. It's often from somebody who's single. So again, it's a good relationship is literally a lifeline right now in this economy. And if you have a bipolar situation, it may be more difficult. So you're going to need to work on that. That's the crux of it.
Yeah, NAMI still says on their website, a little under 3% of the U.S. population has been diagnosed with bipolar, and about 83% are 83% of cases are classified as severe.
And and so with that, we have the disease itself is what may cause an addiction. The disease itself may be what causes hypersexuality and infidelity. The disease itself may be what causes you to go spend money you shouldn't be spending and max out all your credit cards and ruin yourself. Or whatever you can do, decisions you make, wake up with a tattoo on your forehead. I mean, good times don't stay, what goes up must come down. Yeah. And so the film does end in 2015, but even with my own daughter, it is something we're contending with to this day. Our struggle is real. Like I'm part of it. She's a teenager now. So that's just that level. But then there is some mental stuff that we luckily have as part of our team. An amazing, I want to call her a healer, with who Charlotte's seeing for just continuing her mental journey to make sure she stays on the up and up and doesn't follow. And that's one of the other big reasons. She's not even allowed to watch this film. I mean, it's got that much shit in it. And she's not, like, when she's 18, she can watch it. I'm like, no, this is rated R. Just because it's your story doesn't mean you get to even watch it yet. Just like a parent should do, right? But
yeah, I mean, with Charlotte, right? Because the intimacy, the rawness of this film, like, was there that concern? Because, like, she won't watch it, right? You can put those things in place so she doesn't watch it, but it doesn't mean that her friends aren't going to watch it, or her friends' parents aren't going to watch it. So, like, potential, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, like their parents may have watched it. They may have. So that impact of things, like, what was that kind of thought and concern leading into this?
You know what, Kevin? You're right. Just gonna freaking sneak and watch it anyway. Who wouldn't? I can just say, don't. Hey, stop, or I'll say stop again. You know, like what am I? If she watches it, she watches it. She knows she's seen the trailer. There's no Band-Aid to rip off. The kid has been on this journey with me for a long time, and is even just like, is your movie ever gonna freaking come out? And I'm like, no, it's gonna come out. And so she's well versed on what's going on, and she just wants the same thing I do, which is for it to help people. Judge me. My kid is innocent in this. She was a 5-year-old who didn't know, you know, she's just like, why is mommy screaming? She doesn't remember. It's all blurry other than what's captured. But let's not forget there are lots of beautiful family moments too. And it wasn't always car chases and screaming and breaking in, kicking in hotel rooms at 3 a.m. in the morning, stuff like that. It was very loving family. We're going to the Rose Festival together, you know, and buying ice cream and putting her on rides. And it's just real life. It's the way it goes. It's not always on. You're not always on fire. But boy, we were on fire a lot. So for old tape, and Charlotte is, I think, pretty brave to also let me put this out there because it's her right. You know, it's her as a kid, and she's okay with it being public too. And if anybody's gonna do any judging, though, judge me because my kid was just along for the ride.
No, that's all very true. That's all very true. I mean, Charlotte, like what you said earlier, like the questions that you asked Randall before going into this is very interesting because I think, you know, there's so many reality programs and different things looking at people's lives, and you wonder what sort of due diligence is done. So the fact that you did all of this stuff is commendable, but coming into a story like this, what was the kind of thoughts behind like the structure and how you were going to go about, you know, bringing this to life? What were those kind of conversations like?
Michelle, we grooved around music mostly. When we met, it was around the live music scene. My band was a huge component of the way we lived our life, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And when Charlotte came around, I still wanted to keep rocking. But I knew to put on the brake. We had to grow up and take care of the kid. And she just kept going on that fast life in the fast lane thing. I mean, even like more than me, I would end up at places at like warehouse parties where like eyes wide shut kind of shit, people banging on tables and wearing masks, and I would have some buffer for waxing a car thing, and I'm like doing it on this, like this guy's got everything. Anyway, wild, crazy parties, and then you realize you can't anymore, and you got to grow up. But I thought my band was good. We won Best Band in Portland twice. I got flown down to LA by Guns N' Roses' former manager. He was managing The Cure at the time. We had all the big record labels there. I blew it because I jumped off the couch, and his name was, the guy was like, you need to do something crazy. I just got the band, The Used, signed last week. The bassist took off his shoe and he threw it at the executives. I was like, okay, I got you. So I jump off the couch. There's this beautiful woman on the couch and this really not good looking old guy next to her with her, and I didn't know that was his fiance or that was the president of one of the record labels. And I was just, you know, blah blah blah. He gets up, does this, and we didn't get signed, you know. So, but we kept rocking out, and in the movie, you'll see that there's a big fight. Michelle and I are down in California. She's dragged us down there. I'm like, we got to go back to Portland. I got this Railer gig. And so you see that in the film. She's like, I can't believe you took off for a Railer gig. And so I never lost sight of my music. I mean, I have, you know, like still have all my gear, and put Railer together as a 3-piece here in Dallas, Austin. But then COVID hit. I mean, we got into South by Southwest, which I was trying to rebuild. And like, I always feel like right before I ring the bell, I'm on this ladder, and right when the bell is there, the ladder runs go, and I never get to ring the bell. And so I think the question is like, why did I do this or whatnot? I am who I am, and I've had to fight to be who I am, and even with my wife. But I'm a musician. So that gets made clear in the film.
Yeah.
You know, and I have since remarried. I'm lucky to have found an amazing woman here in Texas that accepted me and Charlotte lovingly, and has really stepped up as a stepmother that could be counted on. And again, I think my parents are my role model. They're still together. They've been together my whole life. All my uncles and aunts. We didn't really experience divorce in our clan. Michelle came from a clan where it was just everybody divorced, and it was just a mess. And I don't blame them for that. I love her family who are still around with us. I don't blame them. It just, but when it comes down to it, I'm not like my parents or my brothers. I wasn't military. I'm an artist. And so I ultimately turned my pain into what this film, I guess, is an album of sorts to me. You know, there's like a whole other album waiting, man, like between 2015 and now. Whew. Jen knows. Jen knows. It's wild. This is a wild damn life.
What, you know, when you were coming into this, Jennifer, like, what did you kind of envision some of the, you know, the issues would be, the challenges of bringing this to fruition?
That it would be extremely triggering for anybody suffering through this, whether personally or adjacently. You know, the footage is so raw, it's emotional. It's some people have called it the horror movie of mental health. You know, it brings up the same sort of emotions you have when you watch a horror movie. You get scared, you get upset, you get frightened. And so you know, I'm right now extremely nervous to premiere this, and just be sitting in the audience and seeing, you know, what they go through as they watch it. It will trigger emotions, whether you've ever experienced something like this or not. What drew me in is I had not experienced a mental health illness directly, you know, within my family or adjacently, and it still triggered an immense amount of emotion from me to want to care. And I thought, if this can do this to me, this is going to do this to a lot of other people too.
Kevin, can I ask, start to finish, what do you think of the story and that I could have done better? If people are out there and they're judging on, and that's okay. What do you think I might hear people say that where I failed or could have or should have done better, based on your feeling of the film?
I mean, like, you know, when I was reviewing this and talking about it, you know, it's one of those things, right, where everyone's experience is different, right? So I'd heard about hereditary addictions at a younger age when at school. You know, I'd heard about that kind of stuff, but not everyone does, right? So when you meet someone and if they're like, listen, this, I come from this kind of family, there's these kind of issues here. Like if I'd heard that, I'd be like, okay, yeah, these things. And it's not like you wouldn't, you know what I mean, form a relationship with the person, but there's things that you would look into and think about, especially when having a kid. But as I said, not everyone knows that. So it's not something you can go, oh, well, you should have done, because you don't know the knowledge someone has going into a situation. But it's just, I think, you know, you're obviously going to hear things about Charlotte, right? And the care for Charlotte and those kind of situations and things. But it's easy to Monday night quarterback it, as it were, right? It's easy after the fact to be like, oh, that should have happened and that should have done. And, you know, you should have, you know, divorced quicker. You should have gone to the police quicker. You should have, right? Anyone can say that. But until you've been in a situation, you don't know. You don't know. There's a load of people that say, oh, if I saw someone picking on a woman, I would go up to them and I would do. And then they're in that situation and they're head down and they walk by. You know what I mean? So it's easy to say stuff, but what would you actually do in the moment? Right? That's the big thing. And I think no one's been in your shoes, so no one can really say, you know. I just think something like this, it's a talking point, right? Like, you know, Jen said, it's triggering, right? Even when you haven't been through this kind of situation, you still get hit with so many raw emotions at the end. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think there's these conversations that need to be had. And you know, you can shy away from topics. You can be like, oh, we should only put this on the screen. We should only have these books. But if we do that, we're never going to address the hard issues. So something like this is a talking point. It is one of those things where then you talk and be like, look, we need reform on healthcare. We need reform on family help. We need reform on this. It's only these kind of things that get those conversations going. You know?
Yeah. And where I also have a lot of, where I put a lot of thought is Michelle and what would she think? She would be mortified at some of the ways people are going to see her. But I think they need to get the full story. So I'm sorry to her if she's shown in a light that is less than becoming in scenes. And I hope she sees why it had to be that way. And her family, too. You know, I'm not out to bastardize her family or where she grew up. Evansville, Indiana is a wonderful town in so many respects. Did I think that she did the right thing by getting out of there? I think for her, yes, because her personality was so much bigger than little town anywhere, USA. Could have been anywhere. She just needed to get to a big city because that's what she had in her heart. And so the intent for the judging, I get it, and I guess we'll take whatever gets thrown our way. but I didn't intend any harm, you know, by doing this.
Yeah, I would just don't read the comments. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't read the comments.
All right.
Keep Charlotte offline for a period of time. Those are probably the best things you could probably do once this goes out into the world. You know?
Yeah, and the impact on her, she says she wants to grow up and be a child healthcare specialist or counselor because she wants to help other kids. So she's got a heart of gold. She's a great kid, going through teenage stuff right now. But yeah, I'm very strict on social media. She doesn't even have Instagram. You know, she can talk with her friends on the phone, but there are a lot of new rules that parents are having to contend with as all of these technologies emerge. I mean, I had to use AI to help her with her math homework, man. Like I didn't remember quadratic equations. She's like, "You help me with my homework?" Like, yeah, sure. Um, so that's the moment we're all in. And yeah, so I want to protect her always. And that's really the other part of the film. I fight for my kid. I fight for my kid's safety, her health, her wellness. I think parents need to do that for their kids more these days, and we'd have less school shootings. We'd have less a whole lot of things. So parenting, we need to do better. You know?
I mean, is there any thought of like using this as an educational tool, Jennifer?
100%. I mean, once we go through the round of, standard distribution with streaming platforms and whatnot, we have talked about getting this out to universities and conferences and all of those things. We've had psychiatrists and psychologists and all sorts of researchers look at the footage already, because it's put together in such a way where we don't cut, and you can really, see the progression of what happens with one family.
I mean, that would be an interesting companion piece, like a kind of a round table with some psychologists and doctors kind of talking about, the safeguarding that you could do and ways to mitigate situations and that kind of thing,
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because we're going to do a little sampling of what that would look like at the film premiere. The Q&A isn't going to be your typical Q&A where, it's director, producer, some crew. We will talk for about 5 minutes about, the making of the film, but we are going to invite sort of a roundtable of mental health of some of the people that worked on the film, but how they were directly affected by mental health in their world. And additionally, we've got the therapist who's working with Charlotte, the little girl in the movie, Randall's daughter, coming to talk, about solutions, and sort of launching off of the what's happened to Charlotte now, but geared towards, this is one tragic story, but there are solutions.
She wanted to go to LA for I was like, no, stay home.
Yeah.
No, that sounds like a good idea, though, for the Q&A. I think that will be a great thing to do.
I think people are going to need a little solution massaging after watching the movie. And, we already conducted a sit-down interview with the therapist that's made such great strides with Charlotte about the techniques and what she does. She's more on the holistic side of things, and the stuff she has to say, you won't be used to hearing in typical traditional therapy. We put a QR code at the end of the movie to lead you to resources, because we will continue as we find new solutions to post those on the website.
And, I have received so many letters or messages from people who have seen the film and its development, supporters to help us. We certainly owe a whole lot of thanks to a whole lot of people for bringing this film. I'm so thankful to everyone that has stepped up to help this film reach the point where it's now going to be aired and in the light. But with this journey, so many people are writing saying, I see my family in your story, and it's the lasagna thing again, and they tell me their story. And we've also found that even in just showing the trailer of the film and discussing it, people want a microphone to say, my mother was also bipolar. My uncle was also, and they have their story to tell. So I'm hoping that a whole lot of people are going to be a lot more comfortable talking about these uncomfortable things after seeing the film and saying, it's okay. That whole stigma thing, throw it away, man. There's not enough time left on the planet to have that. Everybody comes with invisible baggage. We see it in our streams every day as we just watch how batshit crazy planet Earth is and how many people are in it and all the crazy things happening. And we just have about 6 seconds for any one story, and then you're on to the next one. And so it's all about vying for attention and getting that right. And the fact that somebody even has an attention span for an hour and a half anymore to tune into this story, I'm thankful that they get start to finish, because attention spans are so short anymore. So to have an audience at Dances with Films that is sitting there and then to be able to face them after and answer any of their questions, I'm excited, because you're right. Maybe somebody. I'm real interested to see a bunch of strangers that don't know me get to peer into my life like that, and then we talk. I'll answer any question.
Yeah, we know we had Bill Guttentag, the director, myself, Randall chimed in for an event in front of a bunch of filmmakers. I think we had about 80 people for All Entertainment Business, which is a networking community. And it's a group I founded years ago, and I've produced about, I don't know, close to 100 events. And that was the most extensive audience Q&A I think we've ever had. And we just showed a couple of clips from the film, and people just wanted to talk. They wanted to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a subject that has got more traction since lockdown, because I think it's like just people losing their support systems because of that. Just, I think, brought these things more to the light, more to the forefront. And it was a case of, where in the past, right, these things weren't talked about, so you didn't necessarily know. You might not have any, relationship to mental health in your family or your group of friends, your sphere of influence, so you didn't know anything about it. But now, right, because of lockdown, because of all of this, and then because of, the way we can connect to people across the world, it's now in everyone's lexicon. Right. So I think now these terms like bipolar and, all these different disorders, right? People understand them to some sort of degree, so it definitely has people curious, right? And it's things like this that, will then kickstart these new conversations. So that's always fascinating.
It's no secret that she passes away. She commits suicide at the end of the film, and my brother Chris committed suicide. My bandmate committed suicide. Michelle's mother committed suicide. Like I've had some hits with that particular impact in a family, and they may be at peace, but they pull the pin on a grenade and they drop it right in the middle of their family, and they leave shrapnel wounds in people's hearts. And so if we could also help prevent suicides by people having those tough conversations and getting it out before they have to take such a drastic action. I have already heard that this film has helped many people in situations where they're happy they saw the film and it helped them through it. And hearing those kinds of stories is, I'm really excited to see how many people this film can help, and hope that anybody thinking about doing that doesn't and gets help.
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's important to just keep talking to people, right? Because then people understand that there's something for them, and you can understand when Michelle, how everything just kind of came down on her and the decisions that were made, but it's still sad. It is still terribly sad, but it was good that you gave such a voice to everything that she was going through. I mean, what was that fault like, Jennifer? Where it's like we need to hear Michelle's words, right? So you then decided to get Michelle Trachtenberg. I can never pronounce her last.
Mhm.
Yeah, to voice it. And Randall, I had no clue, right, the outcome of this film. Like I never read synopsises. I like to just go in with no prejudgment. So I did not know that Michelle committed suicide. And you're hearing Michelle Trachtenberg talk, and I just assumed that was Michelle, right? So you're thinking a story like this, it's not necessarily going to be a happy ending, right? There might be divorce, there might be something, but I wasn't expecting the ending that we got. But I did think it was interesting the way you gave Michelle the voice. So yeah, what was that conversation like? How did you come to the thought to bring Michelle in to voice Michelle, as it were, Jennifer?
Well, it was, how do we make this a balanced story? And when, Michelle's not around anymore to tell her side of the story. And so we had to really lean into what existed. And she was very good with keeping handwritten letters, diaries, journals, medical diaries, social media. Randall was good at holding on to all this stuff and keeping it. And we ingested and scanned just thousands of pages with Randall's help. Like, Randall has really done a lot of work to help us with the organization side of things, to get her voice in there. And so we were, Bill, director, writer, was able to look at all this footage and, kind of see how to balance this all out with everything that existed and pull up, her thoughts and sentences without any alteration. So at that point, it was who connects with mental health in a very strong way. That would be a good Michelle to speak her voice. And so Michelle Trachtenberg had come to us organically when we were sort of talking around internally in Hollywood on, who might be a good pairing for this. And we all agreed that she definitely had the chops to do it. And she was a proponent of, mental health press and knowledge, and, wanted to help.
I mean, she did a great job with the narration, for sure.
Sounds eerily like Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Does she?
laugh. And yeah, Michelle Trachtenberg did stellar performance in her way of, I think, delivering not only Michelle's voice, but even in the way Michelle might have heard herself saying it when she was writing on the page, because it's direct her words out of her diary or social media. And I'm all too pleased with the job that Michelle Trachtenberg did, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. I mean, this is, as I said, look, this is such an intimate and raw story. Like, like, what was the toll of bringing this to life on yourself? You know, Bill, like, how did you kind of process all of this? You know, did you have, you know, speak to people at the end, during, like, you know, how has the impact been on you as a, you know, producer and a storyteller, Jennifer?
Well, it's interesting because whatever topic that you end up producing, you attract people who want to talk about it. And so it's been 5 years of talking about mental health almost every day. And people expect you to be an expert, and I'm not. I'm a storyteller, and I want to pick stories that could help for the greater good and change. And along the way, we'll pick up some tips and some things that are useful for people. But it's interesting trying to stay in the lane of, no, this is storyteller, not the other lanes of like, what should you do?
Mm,
So,
yeah.
but it's there's some internal group of us producers that catch up with each other every so often along this journey, sort for mental health checks. And I'm human. It's sometimes it is hard to not cross over into the story. I was When we finished the film, I was at Randall's wedding, his new new wife, and that's how close we'd all become.
And speaking of taking the toll, how fair is it that I drag my family through this themselves? I asked them both to let me do what I need to in order to get the story out to help other people. Uh, my wife wishes in some ways we could just like I've since released Michelle's ashes. She's in a really amazing spot in Oregon that was pretty sacred. And but I am moving on. You can't. That's the moral of the story. You have to wake up the next day. You have to pick up your bag, put it on your back, and trudge along. Move it, soldier, right? And so she's just wanting to live life, and here I come putting it in her face. And how fair is that? There are tools. I
Mm,
don't want it to impact my current relationship with her. I love her, and how fair is that to her to never let Michelle die, right? Like it's well, day by day. I'm still going day by day, and even in this new life. And so I think, and I know Jen's gonna have to take off here, and that the wrap up is we're going to see how people respond or react. Those are two different actions on a similar word, but I hope people will respond in a way that they can self-love. And if whatever troubles they're going through that happen to deal with this kind of mental illness or addiction or on any other variety of things breaking up families, like America and the world, maybe everybody needs a big ass cry. We just need a big world cry, because it seems like everybody's hurting around the world. Countries are at war with one another over limited resources. Here we are hurtling through space in this round rock, and we're all at each other's throats. Let's take it down a notch. Let's take it down a notch and work on ourselves and our families. And then we're going to restructure our social systems to correct the ills where there are so many gaps. And so I'm hoping this journey, if anything, tells us we can't just sit around and not talk about this anymore. And
mm,
so I hope people like it, but if they They judge me. I've done my best, and I can only thank my team, especially Jennifer Hutchins, for at least giving us a shot to put this out there, whatever may be.
Yeah, no, that's very true, man. Very true. So you're having your world premiere Saturday, the 29th of June at Dances with Films. So, hey, I hope it all goes well. Congratulations on such an interesting film, because it really is, just it's compelling, right? You're watching this intimate story unfold and unravel, and it's raw, it's painful, right? It brings you on an emotional roller coaster, but it's compelling, and you have answers at the end, and not answers, just questions just for you. I mean, you have questions at the end, not just for you, but for society as a whole, on how we deal with things, how we look at things, how we approach things. And hopefully this is the torch to get those conversations in the right place, for galvanize people to talk about things, to look after themselves and their loved ones, right? So you've done a great thing. Congratulations. And how can people follow you, keep track of what's going on, and where the film might be playing in the future?
Dances with Films /Spyral. And you can just show up to the film if you want. I think tickets are like $20. And then we'll have Q&A afterwards. That money doesn't go to us. It goes to the film festival to support the film festival. And then we'll probably do a little gathering afterwards of further conversations, about mental health. So it won't be just your typical movie.
And we also have the website, www.mentalawarennesstoday.com, where there's mental health resources. You can see the trailer for the film. You can contact the crew. You can see the entire film crew involved with it. And Kevin, thank you very much for allowing us to talk about this passion project.
Hey, no problem at all, man. I really appreciate you being so open, right? Being so open and having these conversations. It's been really interesting. So thank you, Randall. Thank you, Jennifer. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and you can hear it all with my songs and Railer because it's on Spotify. So take a listen, because that's how I pour myself out too. And thank you, Kevin. Very much appreciate this conversation today.
And no worries at all, my friend. No worries at all. But man, it's good to see you living your life and, moving on from the situation to support you, support Charlotte. So, hey, all the best, man.
Come see Railer when we're in London.
For sure. For sure, man. Let me know when you're here.
All right.
We'll touch base.
You bet. We'll get you VIP. All right. Well, thank you. I got to hop off here, and anything else we can do to help Kevin, let us know. And you're awesome. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. People, go check out Spyral. Follow these guys. Go see the documentary. It is interesting. It's an eye-opener. It's a conversation starter. Jennifer, Randall, thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye.
Bye.